If you crave the unknown, but fear the dark, then Delphi. After dawn is your sanctuary. As the first light of dawn breaks through the night, we embark on a journey into the mysteries that chill the spine. I'm your host, Jason King, and together, we'll explore the stories that lurk in the shadows. Each episode, we unravel chilling tales of unsolved crimes, police corruption, and heart-wrenching disappearances. Imagine a world where over 600,000 people vanished last year alone in the U.S., leaving behind only questions and heartache. Violent crime is on the rise, and the shadows grow longer each day. By joining us, you become a beacon for the voiceless, a light in the darkness. Together, we'll shine a light on society's darkest corners, uncovering the truths that hide in plain sight. From the eerie silence of abandoned buildings to the bustling streets where secrets are whispered, we leave no stone unturned. Tune in to Delphi After Dawn, where understanding is just a story away. Join us and let the journey begin. As we delve deeper, remember that every story has a heartbeat, a pulse that connects us all. We navigate through the labyrinth of human experience, seeking answers and shedding light on the unknown. So prepare yourself for a journey like no other, where every revelation brings us closer to the truth. Delphi. After Dawn is more than just a podcast. It's a community of seekers, united by curiosity and compassion. Together, we can make a difference, one story at a time. Join us and let the journey begin anew. In the shadows of the city, where secrets are commodities and trust is a luxury, one man delves into the minds of the monstrous. Welcome to the world of Jason King, a detective with a mind as sharp as a scalpel and a heart as resilient as steel. Beneath the ordinary scenes of daily life, grim tales of notorious serial killers lurk. Each one, unique in their madness, leaves behind a chilling legacy of victims and unsolvable puzzles. But the twisted minds of these murderers never elude Jason King. With every episode, the stakes rise. Every grim detail, each hideous crime, King peels back layer by layer. In a world where evil is the norm and horror is the narrative, Jason King remains steadfast. His mission? To uncover the dark consciousness of terror. His promise? Justice. This is Jason King's world, where crime is not just confronted, but comprehended. Dive deep into the chilling tales of serial killers with Jason King. This video is for educational, entertainment, and documentary purposes. Viewer discretion is highly advised. The wind howled through the cornfields of Plainfield, Wisconsin. It carried a chilling tale. It was a tale of a recluse, a tale of a monster. This is a story of Ed Gein. The name sends shivers down the spines of those who dare utter it. Ed Gein, a name synonymous with horror. His crimes shocked the world. They revealed the darkest corners of the human psyche. Gein's story is not for the faint of heart. It is a descent into madness. It is a glimpse into the abyss of depravity. It is a story that continues to haunt us. It is a stark reminder of the evil that can lurk beneath the surface. Born in 1906, Ed Gein's life was far from idyllic. Raised in a strict and isolated environment, his world was shrouded in darkness. His mother, a devoutly religious woman, instilled fear and guilt in her children. She believed the outside world was a den of sin. Young Ed was particularly susceptible to his mother's teachings. He clung to her words. He withdrew further into himself. He became an outcast. His peers found him strange and unsettling. As Ed grew older, his eccentricities became more pronounced. He developed an unhealthy fascination with death. He would spend hours in the local cemetery. He would read books on anatomy and taxidermy. The line between reality and fantasy blurred for Ed. The seeds of something sinister were sown. His isolation, coupled with his morbid interests, created a dangerous cocktail, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. The quiet town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, would become synonymous with horror. The horrors that unfolded there in the late 1950s would shock the nation. Ed Gein, the unassuming handyman, became a monster. The disappearances began subtly. A local shopkeeper vanished without a trace. Whispers of strange occurrences around the Gein farm began to circulate. But no one suspected the truth. No one could imagine the horrors that lurked within the walls of that farmhouse. Then came the gruesome discovery. A horrific scene awaited investigators. It was a scene straight out of a nightmare. The macabre tableau painted a chilling picture of Ed Gein's descent into madness. The investigation into Ed Gein's crimes would unravel a horrifying truth. The seemingly quiet handyman was a grave robber. He was a murderer. He was a monster who fashioned trophies from human skin. The evidence was irrefutable. Gein's farmhouse was a house of horrors. It was filled with grotesque mementos of his crimes. Furniture upholstered with human skin. Skulls fashioned into bowls. Body parts preserved in jars. The nation recoiled in horror. How could such depravity exist? How could a human being commit such unspeakable acts? The trial of Ed Gein captivated the nation. It offered a glimpse into the mind of a monster. Section 1. A troubled youth. Augusta Gein never wanted children. She considered them distractions, obstacles to her own salvation. Yet she bore 2 sons, Henry the elder and Edward the younger. Edward was born on August 27, 1906. He was a frail child, a timid boy thrust into a world that terrified him. Augusta Gein ruled her household with an iron fist. She reserved a special brand of loathing for her sons. She believed them to be inherently sinful, products of her husband, George, whom she considered a weak-willed drunkard. Augusta sought refuge in the scriptures. She filled her sons' heads with tales of damnation, of eternal suffering, of the evils that lurked in the world outside their isolated farm. Ed, in particular, clung to his mother's words. He became withdrawn and reclusive. He found solace only in her presence. His older brother, Henry, recognized the unhealthy dynamic. He tried to shield Ed from their mother's fanaticism, but Augusta's influence was insidious. It permeated every aspect of their lives. School offered little respite for young Ed. His classmates found him strange and unsettling. His odd mannerisms and morbid fascinations made him an outcast. He retreated further into himself, seeking refuge in a world of his own making, a world where his mother's pronouncements reigned supreme. Section 2. The Shadow of Augusta. As Ed grew older, his attachment to his mother intensified. He worshipped her. He lived in fear of her disapproval. Augusta, in turn, used this devotion to control her son. She kept him isolated, dependent, trapped in her web of religious fervor and paranoia. Augusta Gein reserved a special hatred for women. She considered them instruments of temptation. She filled Ed's head with tales of their wickedness, their deceitfulness, their power to corrupt. This instilled in him a deep-seated fear and distrust of women, a fear that would fester and grow into something far more sinister. The Gein brothers, despite their differences, remained close. Henry, recognizing the suffocating hold Augusta had over his brother, tried to encourage Ed to break free, to experience life outside their isolated farm. But Ed remained resistant. He couldn't conceive of a world without his mother. She was his anchor, his only source of comfort in an increasingly terrifying world. Augusta, sensing a threat to her control, undermined Henry's efforts at every turn. She sowed seeds of discord between the brothers. She reminded Ed of his loyalty, his duty, his obligation to remain by her side. And so, Ed remained tethered to his mother, trapped in a cycle of dependence and isolation, a prisoner in his own home. Section 3. Isolation and Obsession. Life on the Gein farm was one of monotony and isolation. The brothers toiled endlessly, their lives dictated by their mother's rigid schedule and religious pronouncements. Ed found solace in his chores, in the routine, in the absence of human interaction. He developed strange habits. He would spend hours reading the obituaries in the local newspaper. He became fascinated by accounts of death and dismemberment. He would cut out articles and hoard them in his room, his private collection of morbid curiosities. His interest in anatomy grew. He would trap small animals and dissect them, studying their insides with a detached curiosity. He saw no cruelty in his actions, only a thirst for knowledge, a desire to understand the intricacies of life and death. At night, shrouded in darkness, Ed's imagination would run wild. He would lose himself in gruesome fantasies, fueled by his morbid readings and his own twisted desires. He began to blur the lines between reality and fantasy, his grip on sanity slowly slipping away. The death of Ed's father, George, in 1940, only intensified his isolation. Though Augusta held little affection for her husband, his absence left a void in their lives. Ed and Henry were now responsible for the farm, their mother's grip on them tight. Ed's fascination with death took on a new dimension. He began visiting the local cemeteries. He would wander among the tombstones, reading the inscriptions, his fingers tracing the engraved names. He felt a strange connection to the departed, an affinity for their stillness, their silence. At first, his visits were harmless. he would simply sit by the graves, lost in thought. But as time went on, his behavior became more erratic. He began digging up graves, driven by a compulsion he couldn't explain. He was drawn to the bodies of recently deceased women. He would exhume their corpses, taking them back to his farmhouse. There, in the solitude of his room, he would indulge his darkest fantasies. He would dress the bodies, pose them. He would pretend they were alive, his companions in his lonely world. Henry, increasingly concerned about his brother's behavior, confronted Ed about the strange odors emanating from his room. The smell of decay, of formaldehyde. Ed brushed off his brother's concerns. He claimed it was nothing, just some roadkill he had found. But Henry knew better. He had seen the strange trophies Ed had collected. Bones, skulls. He had heard the whispers in town, the rumors of Ed's nocturnal activities. Henry tried to reason with his brother, to get him help, but Ed refused. He accused Henry of betraying him, of siding with their mother. In May of 1944, a fire broke out on the Gein property. Henry and Ed were burning brush. The fire got out of control. When firefighters arrived, they found Henry's body lying in the field. He was dead. The circumstances surrounding Henry's death were suspicious. Some speculated that Ed had started the fire intentionally, that he had killed his brother, but no charges were ever filed. Ed claimed it was an accident, and the authorities believed him. With Henry gone, Ed was truly alone. He had lost his only confidant, his only protector. He was now completely at the mercy of his mother and his own twisted desires. The death of Henry marked a turning point in Ed Gein's life. It was the catalyst that would send him spiraling further into madness. The death of Henry Gein hung over the Plainfield farmhouse like a shroud. It was a heavy silence, broken only by the creaking of the old structure and the rustling of the cornfields outside. Ed, now the sole caretaker of his aging mother and their dilapidated property, became more reclusive than ever. He moved through his days like a specter, his face a mask of impassivity, his eyes vacant. The townsfolk, who had always regarded him with a mix of pity and apprehension, now avoided him altogether. They spoke of him in hushed tones, if they spoke of him at all. Ed welcomed the solitude. He had always preferred the company of the dead to the living. He spent his days tending to the farm, his nights lost in his gruesome hobbies. The line between reality and his macabre fantasies blurred. He was slipping into a dark abyss, and there was no one left to pull him back. The death of his mother, Augusta, in December 1945, dealt another blow to Ed's already fractured psyche. The woman who had shaped his world, who had both nurtured and twisted his thoughts, was gone. He was truly alone, adrift in a world that had always terrified him. The years following Augusta's death were marked by Ed's deepening isolation and his increasingly bizarre behavior. He boarded up the rooms his mother and brother had used, leaving them untouched, as if frozen in time. The rest of the house fell into further disrepair, becoming a reflection of his deteriorating mental state. He developed a morbid fascination with human anatomy, particularly female anatomy. He devoured books and magazines, his hunger for knowledge about the human body growing with each passing day. His trips to the cemetery became more frequent, his interest shifting from simply visiting graves to exhuming corpses. The townsfolk began to notice his strange behavior. They whispered about lights flickering in the dead of night at the Gein farm, about Ed's truck disappearing at odd hours. There were rumors of missing pets, of farm animals found mutilated, their carcasses drained of blood. Fear and suspicion began to take root in Plainfield. Whispers of something sinister lurking in their midst. But no one could have imagined the truth. The horrors that lay hidden within the walls of the Gein farmhouse, concealed from the eyes of the world. On December 8th, 1954, Mary Hogan, a well-liked tavern owner from a nearby town, vanished without a trace. Her disappearance sent shockwaves through the community. A community already on edge from the whispers and shadows surrounding Ed Gein. The last anyone had seen of Mary was at her tavern, closing up for the night. Her purse, containing her belongings and a small sum of money, was left untouched. There was no sign of a struggle, no indication of what had happened to her. The police were baffled. They questioned locals, searched the surrounding area, but found no leads, no clues to Mary's whereabouts. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the case grew cold. Mary Hogan seemed to have vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, Ed Gein continued his solitary existence, seemingly oblivious to the fear and suspicion that gripped Plainfield. He tended to his farm, visited the library, and continued his nocturnal excursions. His dark secrets, hidden from the world, buried beneath the weight of his madness. The disappearance of Mary Hogan remained unsolved, a haunting reminder of the vulnerability of their small community. The whispers about Ed Gein continued, fueled by his increasingly erratic behavior and the growing sense of unease that permeated Plainfield. Some locals reported seeing Ed at Mary's tavern in the days leading up to her disappearance. Others recalled seeing his truck parked near her establishment on the night she vanished. These were just whispers, rumors fueled by fear and speculation, but they were enough to cast a shadow of suspicion over the reclusive farmer. The sheriff at the time, a man named Art Schley, dismissed these rumors. He considered Ed harmless, a bit strange perhaps, but ultimately harmless. He believed that Mary Hogan had likely run off or met with foul play elsewhere. But the whispers persisted, and deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. The disappearance of Mary Hogan, though seemingly unconnected to the strange happenings at the Gein farm, had brought the darkness lurking at the edge of Plainfield into sharp focus. The investigation into Mary Hogan's disappearance had stalled. The police, lacking any concrete leads, were at a dead end. Hope of finding her alive dwindled with each passing day. Then a seemingly insignificant detail emerged from the shadows. A detail that would change everything. The owner of the local hardware store, while reviewing his sales ledger, came across an interesting entry. On the afternoon of Mary Hogan's disappearance, someone had purchased a quantity of antifreeze from his shop. The name listed on the receipt, Mrs. Warden. The hardware store owner, a talkative man who knew everyone in town, found it odd. Mrs. Warden, a widow who lived on the outskirts of Plainfield, rarely left her home, let alone purchased antifreeze. Intrigued, he decided to pay her a visit. What he discovered at the Warden residence sent a chill down his spine. The house was empty. Mrs. Warden was gone. Panic surged through him as he recalled the rumors, the whispers about Ed Gein, the missing antifreeze, the eerie disappearances plaguing their once peaceful town. He raced back to town, his heart pounding in his chest, a terrifying realization dawning on him. He had to reach the sheriff. Now. Sheriff Art Schley stood on the porch of the Gein farmhouse, a knot of dread twisting in his gut. The hardware store owner's frantic call had echoed in his ears, his words painting a chilling picture. Mrs. Warden missing, the antifreeze, the whispers about Ed Gein swirling in his mind. He raised a hand and knocked on the door, the sound swallowed by the silence of the old house. He waited, the silence stretching, broken only by the creaking of the floorboards beneath his feet. He knocked again louder this time, his gut churning with a growing sense of urgency. Still no answer. He tried the doorknob. To his surprise, it turned. The door creaked open, revealing a darkness that seemed to reach out to pull him inside. He stepped into the house, his hand instinctively reaching for the flashlight on his belt. The stench hit him first, a wave of decay and something else, something sickly sweet and metallic. He flicked on the flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom, revealing a scene that sent a shiver down his spine. The house was in disarray, cluttered with junk and debris. But it was something else that made his blood run cold. He could feel it in his bones. It was in the oppressive silence of the house, the strange shadows that danced at the edge of the flashlight's beam. It was in the air itself, heavy with an unspoken horror. He took a step forward, then another, his heart pounding in his chest. The beam of his flashlight illuminating a path through the darkness, leading him deeper into the heart of the nightmare that awaited him. The beam of Sheriff Schley's flashlight swept across the room, revealing a scene of unspeakable grotesquerie. Animal bones, bleached white by the sun, were scattered across the floor. Skulls, their empty sockets, staring back at him, adorned the shelves. Dust-covered jars, filled with unidentifiable organs floating in murky liquid, lined the windowsill. He stepped gingerly through the cluttered room, his stomach churning. A low moan escaped his lips as he stumbled over something soft and yielding. He shone his flashlight down, his breath catching in his throat. It was a human head, its features contorted in a silent scream, its eyes staring vacantly up at him. He staggered back, bile rising in his throat. The room seemed to spin, the grotesque tableau blurring around him. He fumbled for his radio, his hand trembling. "Get me back up." He rasped into the receiver, his voice tight with horror. "And get me the coroner. We've got a situation here." The Gein farmhouse, once a place of quiet obscurity, was about to become a beacon of horror, its name forever etched in the annals of true crime. As more law enforcement officials arrived at the Gein farmhouse, the full extent of Ed Gein's depravity became horrifyingly clear. The house was not just a repository for his morbid fascinations. It was a shrine dedicated to his twisted desires. In the corner of the living room, draped over a chair, was a suit made entirely of human skin, its seams stitched together with meticulous care. Lampshades fashioned from the same material cast a grotesque glow upon the room. A belt made of severed nipples hung limply on a hook. The air was thick with the stench of death, the sweet, cloying aroma of decay, clinging to everything. The investigators moved through the house with a mix of horror and fascination, their eyes widening in disbelief at each new discovery. Word of the horrors discovered at the Gein farmhouse spread through Plainfield like wildfire, igniting a firestorm of fear, disgust, and disbelief. The townsfolk, who had long regarded Ed Gein as a harmless eccentric, recoiled in horror at the realization that a monster had lived among them, hidden in plain sight. The investigation intensified, with law enforcement officials from surrounding counties joining the search for Ed Gein. They scoured the woods surrounding the farmhouse, dredged nearby ponds, and followed every lead, no matter how insignificant it seemed. Meanwhile, Ed Gein was long gone, having fled his macabre lair before the arrival of the authorities. The hunt was on, but for Ed Gein, there would be no escape from the demons that haunted him, the shadows that clung to him like a shroud. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the cornfields, a sense of unease settled over Plainfield. The discovery of the horrors at the Gein farmhouse had shaken the small town to its core, leaving an indelible mark on its psyche. The townsfolk, once accustomed to the quiet rhythm of rural life, were now haunted by the knowledge that a monster had walked among them. They bolted their doors, kept their children close, and looked at their neighbors with suspicion. Their sense of security shattered. The name Ed Gein, once whispered with a mix of pity and amusement, was now uttered in hushed tones, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their peaceful community. The manhunt for Ed Gein was unlike any other in the history of Plainfield. This was not a petty thief or a drunken brawler they were after, but a specter of unimaginable horror, a figure who had ripped away the veil of normalcy and exposed the raw terror lurking beneath. The manhunt was a frantic scramble for answers in a world suddenly turned upside down. Day and night, the search parties combed the countryside, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, their voices calling out a name that seemed to hang in the air like a curse. The National Guard was called in, their presence a stark reminder of the gravity of the situation. Newspapers across the country splashed Gein's face on their front pages, transforming the quiet farmer into a ghoulish celebrity, the subject of morbid fascination and dread. Ed Gein, a ghost in life, remained a phantom in their pursuit. The break in the case came from an unexpected source. A young deputy, newly assigned to the manhunt, was driving along a deserted stretch of highway when he spotted a lone figure walking along the shoulder. Something about the man's gait, the way he hunched his shoulders as if carrying an invisible weight, struck the deputy as familiar. He slowed his car, his eyes narrowing as he got a closer look. The man's face was obscured by a grimy baseball cap, pulled low over his forehead. Hesitantly, the deputy rolled down his window. "Excuse me, sir," he called out, his voice barely a whisper in the stillness of the evening air. The figure stopped walking, but didn't turn around. "Can I help you? Are you lost?" Slowly, as if in a trance, the man turned. The deputy's heart leaped into his throat. It was him, Ed Gein, standing there in the fading light, his face a mask of impassivity, his eyes vacant and lost. "Get in the car." Gein, seemingly resigned to his fate, offered no resistance. He shuffled towards the car, his head bowed, his hands dangling limply by his sides. The news of Ed Gein's capture spread through Plainfield like a tidal wave, washing away the fear and uncertainty that had gripped the town for days. Relief, tinged with a lingering sense of horror, settled over the community. The monster in their midst had been caught. At the station, under the harsh glare of the interrogation room light, Ed Gein confessed. His words, delivered in a flat monotone, sent chills down the spines of the seasoned detectives. He spoke of his crimes with a detached curiosity, as if recounting a trip to the grocery store, rather than the gruesome details of murder and mutilation. He expressed no remorse, no regret, only a childlike bewilderment at the horror he had inflicted upon the world. The trial of Ed Gein was a media spectacle. Reporters from across the country descended upon the small town of Wautoma, Wisconsin, eager to catch a glimpse of the mad butcher of Plainfield. The courtroom was packed, the atmosphere electric with anticipation and dread. Gein, dressed in a borrowed suit, sat quietly at the defense table, his eyes downcast, his face a mask of indifference. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence. The gruesome trophies recovered from the farmhouse, the chilling testimony of the investigators, the confessions of the defendant himself. After days of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before reaching a verdict. Not guilty by reason of insanity. The farmhouse, once a place of quiet obscurity, stood as a grim monument to Ed Gein's madness. The townsfolk of Plainfield, eager to erase the stain of his crimes, decided to auction off the property and its contents. On a cold March morning in 1958, a crowd gathered as the auctioneer's hammer fell, sealing the fate of the infamous farmhouse. Tourists and gawkers, drawn by morbid curiosity, bid on everything from furniture to tools, eager to own a piece of the macabre history that had unfolded within those walls. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Just days before the scheduled sale, a fire, believed to have been started by arsonists, ripped through the farmhouse, reducing it to a smoldering ruin. The charred remains of the farmhouse stood for a time, a stark reminder of the horrors that had transpired there. Ed Gein's trial marked the end of his physical reign of terror, but it was the beginning of a far more pervasive horror. His crimes, once whispered in hushed tones within the confines of Plainfield, were now broadcast across the globe, seeping into the collective consciousness of a world, both horrified and strangely captivated. The public, hungry for details, devoured every gruesome revelation that emerged from the investigation and trial. The image of the unassuming handyman, revealed to be a monster who fashioned trophies from human skin, struck a chord of primal fear, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lay dormant within the human psyche. The media, sensing a story that tapped into the deepest anxieties of post-war America, seized upon Gein's case with a fervor that bordered on the obsessive. The name Ed Gein became synonymous with pure evil. A boogeyman whispered in hushed tones, a cautionary tale told to keep children in line and remind adults of the monsters that lurked in the shadows of their seemingly safe world. The true extent of Ed Gein's impact on popular culture became undeniable with the release of Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece, Psycho, in 1960. Robert Bloch, the author of the novel upon which the film was based, drew heavily from the Gein case, finding in the real-life horrors a chilling template for his fictional exploration of madness and murder. Norman Bates, the motel owner with a deadly secret and a disturbingly close relationship with his mother, became a cinematic icon. His chillingly ordinary demeanor masking a terrifying inner darkness. Though Bloch made a point of stating that Bates was not directly based on Gein, the parallels were undeniable. The similarities between the novel and the real-life case, the grotesque trophies, the warped maternal bond, the isolated farmhouse transformed into a killing ground, resonated deeply with audiences, blurring the lines between fiction and reality. Psycho was a critical and commercial success, solidifying its place in cinematic history and cementing Ed Gein's legacy as a muse for the macabre. The film's impact extended far beyond the silver screen, influencing a generation of horror filmmakers and writers who saw in Gein's story a blueprint for exploring the darkest corners of the human psyche. Beyond the silver screen, the ripple effects of Ed Gein's crimes reached far beyond the realm of cinema, leaving an indelible mark on the literary landscape as well. Authors, both established and aspiring, found themselves drawn to the macabre allure of his story, recognizing in its gruesome details a rich vein of inspiration for their own explorations of horror and the human condition. Thomas Harris, in his chilling novel, The Silence of the Lambs, introduced the world to Buffalo Bill, a serial killer obsessed with fashioning a suit of skin from his victims. The character's gruesome hobby, a clear echo of Gein's own macabre practices, sent shockwaves through the literary world, solidifying the link between Gein and the exploration of extreme deviance in fiction. The Texas Chain Saw Massacre, a gritty and terrifying film that became a cult classic, drew inspiration from the Gein case, using the real-life horrors as a springboard for its own brand of Southern Gothic horror. Leatherface, the film's iconic antagonist, with his grotesque mask and penchant for power tools, became a horror icon, his terrifying visage forever linked to the legacy of Ed Gein. These are but a few examples of the countless books, films, and other works of art that owe a debt of inspiration, however indirect, to the chilling tale of Ed Gein. His story, a potent cocktail of rural isolation, psychological disturbance, and unimaginable cruelty, continues to capture the imagination, serving as a cautionary tale and a source of endless fascination for those who dare to peer into the abyss of human depravity. Ed Gein died in 1984, his body succumbing to the ravages of cancer within the walls of the mental institution that had been his home for over 3 decades. With his passing, the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. The tangible threat of his physical presence finally extinguished. However, the shadow he cast, the indelible mark he left on our collective psyche, remained. The horrors he unleashed in that isolated Wisconsin farmhouse transcended the boundaries of time and place, becoming a chilling reminder of the fragility of our social fabric, the ever-present potential for darkness to take root in the most unexpected of places. The name Ed Gein continues to evoke a visceral reaction. His story, a source of both morbid fascination and profound revulsion. He's become a cautionary tale, a symbol of the dangers of unchecked mental illness, the corrosive effects of isolation, the monstrous potential that lurks within us all. In the annals of true crime, Ed Gein stands as a singular figure, a chilling anomaly that defies easy categorization. He was a monster, yes, but a monster born of a unique confluence of factors: a suffocating upbringing, a fractured psyche, and a world that failed to recognize the warning signs before it was too late. His legacy is a complex and troubling one, forcing us to confront the darkest aspects of human nature and grapple with the unsettling notion that monsters do not always lurk in the shadows. They sometimes walk among us, hidden in plain sight. The true horror of Ed Gein's story lies not in the grotesque trophies he collected, nor in the macabre details of his crimes. The real horror rests in the realization that the seeds of such darkness can be sown in the most ordinary of places. Gein was not a monster born, but a man twisted by circumstance, isolation, and a suffocating upbringing. His story forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that evil does not always announce itself with a roar. It can fester quietly, hidden beneath a veneer of normalcy, in the seemingly unremarkable routines of everyday life. The gruesome artifacts he created were not merely the products of a deranged mind. They were a reflection of a life starved for connection, a desperate attempt to fill the void left by a lifetime of loneliness and emotional neglect. The tragedy of Ed Gein lies not just in the lives he took, but in the life he himself was denied. A life robbed of love, acceptance, and the opportunity to forge a meaningful connection with the world around him. The impact of Gein's crimes reverberated far beyond the walls of his dilapidated farmhouse. The small town of Plainfield, once a haven of rural tranquility, found itself thrust into the glare of the national spotlight, forever linked to a darkness it had never sought and never fully understood. The townsfolk, once bound by a shared sense of community and trust, were left reeling Their assumptions about the world and those around them shattered. Suspicion and fear took root, poisoning relationships and casting a long shadow over their once peaceful lives. The name Ed Gein became synonymous with their collective trauma, a whispered reminder of the fragility of innocence, the ever-present potential for evil to flourish, even in the most idyllic of settings. The scars of his crimes ran deep, a constant presence in the fabric of their lives, a chilling reminder that some wounds never truly heal. In the decades since Ed Gein's crimes shocked the world, his story has been endlessly analyzed, sensationalized, and repackaged for public consumption. He has become a ghoulish celebrity, a fixture in true crime documentaries. His name a guaranteed draw for audiences hungry for tales of horror and depravity. It is easy to get lost in the macabre details, to view Gein as a monstrous anomaly, a product of forces beyond our understanding. But to do so is to miss the larger point, to ignore the uncomfortable truths his story reveals about the society that allowed him to flourish. Gein's crimes were not simply the acts of a madman operating in a vacuum. They were the culmination of a lifetime of societal neglect, a failure to recognize and address the warning signs of mental illness, a tendency to turn a blind eye to the plight of the isolated and the marginalized. His story is a stark reminder that monsters are not born, they are made. And we, as a society, bear a responsibility to create a world where such darkness is less likely to take root. Ed Gein's physical reign of terror ended decades ago, yet his legacy endures, a chilling reminder of the darkness that resides within the human heart. His crimes forced us to confront the uncomfortable reality that evil can lurk in the most unexpected of places, hidden beneath a veneer of normalcy, waiting for the opportunity to rear its ugly head. But perhaps the most enduring legacy of Ed Gein lies not in the horror he inflicted, but in the questions he continues to pose. Questions about the nature of evil, the roots of violence, and the responsibility we bear for creating a world where such darkness is less likely to take hold. His story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that we must remain vigilant in our efforts to combat the forces of isolation, intolerance, and indifference that can transform ordinary individuals into agents of unimaginable cruelty. Only by confronting these uncomfortable truths, by acknowledging the darkness that resides within us all, can we hope to create a world where the horrors of Plainfield are never repeated. In a shadowy underworld of crime, where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, you've been journeying with me, Jason King. We've dissected the minds of some of the most notorious serial killers, peeling back the layers of their darkest secrets. Every shadowy corner we've turned, every chilling confession we've analyzed, has been a step deeper into the abyss. But remember, the abyss also gazes back. So, brace yourself as we prepare to dive even deeper. Next time, we'll unravel a tale so twisted it will make your spine tingle with anticipation. An enigma so intricate it will have you questioning everything you thought you knew. Until then, keep your eyes open and your mind sharp. This is Jason King, signing off.